Hi, and welcome to another Talk and Draw with Store and Cook. I'm an artist, and today I decided to do Doctor Strange. Actually, 2 days ago, I decided to do Doctor Strange. I had set up my system to do the pencils, but I forgot to hit the record button. So I'm just showing you the pencils here. I scanned them in for you, and then we're actually going to get into the painting. And so I'm using a combination of Arteza. Hang on one second. So this painting took me about 15 hours to do, and I'm speeding it up considerably, so not to bore the pants off of you. But you can see it coming along here, and so what I'm doing right now is I'm using an Arteza watercolor pen because you want to always do thick over thin, right? So I'm putting down thin layers first, which is sort of just a watercolor, and I'm going to use a little bit of watercolor before I go in with the gouache. And I'm almost like approaching this like I'd be inking a comic book, but I'm keeping in the back of my mind the idea that I want to build up tones. I want to build up shapes of color. So not concentrating on line as much as I would in a comic book drawing, but a lot on shape. So yep, it's just sort of like spotting the blacks. Now the interesting thing is because the paper is white, and when I do this, I'm like, damn, that looks dark, that looks great, blah blah blah. But when I start adding color, you'll see that those blacks will kind of fade away, and it's actually kind of a coffee color. It's not actually a black in that Arteza pen. Actually, I believe the Arteza pen is called coffee. So yeah, so we're just kind of continuing to work on the details. The reason I was excited to do Doctor Strange was I happened to read a series of graphic novels, and I have to go find what. So I hopped away for a second to just make sure I had the names right and stuff like that. So Doctor Strange was done from about 2015 to 2018 by Aaron and Bacallo. I think I'm saying that right. And Jason Aaron is the author. Chris Bacallo is the artist. There was some spot art done by some other artists like Kevin Nolan and stuff like that. But just a really good series. I don't read comics a lot anymore, but I found 4 volumes in the Ithaca Library and the public library, and so I picked them up and I started reading them, and I was just I always loved Doctor Strange, especially like the Paul Smith run way back in the day. And I don't think I've ever drawn him. I know I've drawn Clea, but I was like, oh, you know what? It would be fun to draw Doctor Strange and see if someone would like to buy it. Hopefully, if I do a good enough job, someone will be like, I love Doctor Strange too. I want that on my wall. So that's sort of my intention here is to have fun, play around with gouache, which is a medium that I love. And my phone is beeping, and it's just saying, your dish um, bill is due. So exciting things here in the Cook Cartagena household. Anyway, so yeah, I'm continuing to spot those blacks, and at the moment it feels very sort of comic booky, and I think as it goes along, we tried to get away from that. So I did look at some various reference, because Doctor Strange's costumes kind of changed over the years, and I kind of decided to go my own direction with it. So it's not copying a single artist. It's sort of an amalgamation, going all the way back to Steve Ditko, who's the original Doctor Strange artist, and sort of filtered through the years and stuff like that. So this is my version of Doctor Strange, and yeah, so we're just continuing to go along. I mean, one of the things I did in the pencils was, you see my head pops in there every once in a while. Was I was kind of working in tone, which is something that I wouldn't do if it was a comic book drawing, which is I would actually be doing cross hatching because an inker cannot emulate tone unless they're going to some kind of monochromatic grayscale or something like that. Um, um, so if I'm inking my own stuff, I can use a tone because I know that that's sort of a shorthand to remind myself, oh, I want a crosshatch here or something like that. But really, it's better for me to actually go and do the crosshatching because or feathering or whatever ink technique I want to use on that piece. So that's how I'd approach a black and white piece. But this is a color piece. So now I'm starting to come in with some actual watercolor or watered down gouache. I was using a combination of both. I was using Arteza gouache for a lot of this. I did have a couple of tubes of Winsor Newton and a couple of tubes of the whole bean acrylic gouaches, which I quite like. Um, so I in my studio I sort of have a box of many different tubes of paint, and I just sort of use them as I go along. Um, One of the things I wanted to talk about was I see these people like who am I thinking of on Instagram? I see a lot of Frank Cho's work, and he does time lapse drawings of his pencils and stuff like that. And I have no idea how he does this, but he never turns the paper. I am constantly turning the paper to get an angle to make it easier on my wrist to put down that color. I don't know how people just sit there and I can't do that. So you have to take this video. It for the entertainment's sake. It's a little bit hard to see what I'm doing because I keep moving the camera around or not moving the camera around, but moving the artwork around and keep messing around. Now I'm starting to lay in some of the cloak. Of course, the classic red. Um, Again, I know that these colors are going to be a little bit anemic. They're not going to be the final colors. I'm gonna come on top of them with thicker gouache paint, and this did take me 2 days to do, so about 15 hours. Um, so I'm sort of thinking about my process throughout the entire you know endeavor, and so what I'm doing right now might not seem all that interesting, but it's just the foundation, and I'm not one of these. It's funny when I paint from life, I can go al primo, which is like you see the color, you mix the color, you place the color on the canvas, boom, go. Like if I'm doing a still life or if I'm working on a figure drawing and I'm working in oil paint, I have no problem with doing that. But when it comes from painting out of my imagination, I feel like I do better when I work up in layers and I sort of sneak up onto the colors that I want. Like at one point, you're going to see me put down the sash that Strange is wearing around his torso there, and I go with this really horrendous pink color. It's a pink purple, and I hate it. I mean, it's not a color that I'm going to let live there, but it's perfect for what I wanted to layer on top of it, and so yeah, we're just continuing to go, and like I said, this painting took a while, and you're seeing it sped up very fast. I know it's a little herky jerky, but if I slowed it down to make it less herky jerky, like if I went at 15 uh, times 15 speed, um, this video would have been about 22-25 minutes long. Um, I dropped it down to 30 times, and we're already on about the 215, 220 mark of this video. So it is, it's a yeah, it's just okay. Now I'm starting to work on the background. I decided I wanted, Stephen Strange's, great nemesis to be in the painting, sort of represented. So I am putting in Dread Dormammu. I always like saying that, Dread Dormammu. Uh, so much fun, and I work a lot on the background here. I put a lot of texture, and I keep kind of blowing up the texture, and I'm sort of working spots because I want that texture back there to have that sort of cosmic vibrancy. And I keep going light and dark and light and dark, and then sometimes like layering and stuff like that. You'll see me spend a lot of time slapping different things down on in the background. Um, and it takes a lot of time. Okay, maybe we could cut that part out. Yeah, I'll have to remember to come back and cut that around the 235 mark. There's a little bit of a gap that doesn't need to. I'm just writing that down. I'll trim that out. I'm probably looking for paint, tubes of paint that I want to try, or mixing color. So if I'm away from, or the dog is bothering me, that's probably the other thing. The dog is often like, on my feet at this point. Eddie, our dog, our golden doodle, who's totally black, no gold in him. But yeah, like right now, you can definitely tell I'm mixing paint because my left hand is still on it. This is about I want to say this is about 9 by 14. I think that's slightly under 9 by 14. The live painting, excuse me, the actual piece of paper is 9 by 14, and it's not paper; it's illustration board. Although it's only 1 ply illustration board, I probably should have done 2 ply. But this is what I had in my studio. I don't use a lot of illustration board unless I am painting. Like if I'm doing interiors, like black and white interiors, I'll often use just regular old paper, or I will use marker paper, depending, and like if I'm putting marker down. Um, but illustration board is probably my favorite medium, my favorite substrate to work in. I just love the field, and I always go cold press. I don't ever go hot press. Hot press is real slick, and I don't like that. I don't like how the pencil feels on it. I don't like how it slides it around. I don't. Um, it's great for inking, um, but everything else, it's subpar. Especially when it comes to painting, because if you've got a really slick surface, there's nothing for the paper to grip onto, and especially if you go in thin washes like I tend to do with watercolor or even gouache watered down. I'm looking for paint. You get to see my hairy arm. It's so exciting being you guys, I'm sure. Excuse me. There's the box of paint in the corner. Yeah, I mean, finding the right color and mixing the right color. I mean, that's a lot of painting. That's a lot of the job at hand, and it takes a while to sometimes get that. This is a color I absolutely love because it's so intense. This is a Prussian blue, um, used in watered down. It's This is a gouache paint, and it's watered down, and I just love how it's dark. I often use Prussian blue in order to mix up a really dark. Like I'll mix a little Prussian blue with a little purple and a little, like a dark purple and a dark brown, to get sort of to a black if I don't want to use a full out black. A lot of times, if you do use full black, it creates sort of holes in the painting in a way. It's kind of unnatural. It's better. You can go black. You can go really really dark, but I'll always mix a little bit of red into an actual black, or I'll make my own kind of really dark color with Prussian blue, or sometimes dioxide purple and dioxide viridian green, and a little brown to put down on the saturation of the color. So there's a lot of different ways of making darks, and everything is, a dark is only a dark if, as long as you've got some kind of light near it too, right? So we've got to kind of keep, me. Now I'm starting to paint that, and unfortunately it's a little bit cut off there. I turned it, the Prussian blue a little thicker viscosity, so it is darker when I do that, and I just really like how that comes along. The brush I'm using is, here, I'll show you in a second. It is a Dainu something Japanese, but this is the brush I'm using. I got this online, and it's squirrel hair, and despite it being really really big, look at that. Whoops, look at that point. I shouldn't do that. Kids don't do that. I can get a super thin line with this, but then I can also lay a little sideways and get nice big swaths. So that's I love that brush. I've got two others that are actually smaller than that, and I don't use them because that one gives me such a thin line when I want it to. The only time I tend to go to a little thinner brush when I'm working on Strange's body, just because the head of that thing is so big that it's a little hard to sometimes see like right where I want to lay down a line. Um, the other thing is because it's such a big full brush, it can hold a lot of liquid. It can hold a lot of paint, and that's really nice because you can lay down some serious areas without having to reload, and that saves some time and stuff. So, yeah, I'm continuing to layer and layer and layer that background. Um, so you might be wondering what the circle behind him is. That going to be a planet storm? Is that going to be what? No, it's going to be sort of a magical circle, and I do put a moon to the on the right there next to his cape, and the other circle down below is an additional magic circle. Um, that'll become more clear as we go along. So one weird thing was I almost decided to leave the blue tape on because it actually works with that Prussian blue so well, but I did take it off. Just especially because up in the corner there's got that sort of crinkle mark, and I didn't think that was very neat. And also there's later on I'll get paint on that tape, and it's just not as neat as when you take it off. Although you got to be super super careful when you're taking off blue tape, man, especially with illustration board. Like I peeled one little corner of this, and I was kind of pissed at myself for doing that. I went a little fast, and it picked up the paint. I was able to burnish it back down, and no harm no foul. But yeah, I noticed it just in time. But I have ripped paintings before, and then you just have to go in with some acrylic paint and you know hammer down all those fibers, the paper fibers, and then paint on top of it what you had before. And that that's a lot of extra time. Don't want to do that if all possible. So this is a good time to say, hey, if you like this kind of content, if you like seeing, um, you know, what do they call it? Intellectual properties of other things for me to do instead of my own. Like, do you want to see me do Wolverine or Spider-Man or Batman or whatever? Let me know. Just put a comment down there. If this turns out to be popular, I'll keep doing it because I had a freaking blast doing this. But also, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all that kind of stuff. Tell your friends, tell your family. Anybody who's an artist, anybody who's into role playing, anybody who's into comics. They're my peeps. You're my peeps. I want to have that dialogue and that discourse with y'all, and yeah, because this is a lot of fun for me. But I also need to make a living. So I'm going to be very upfront that I want to sell my art. I want people to buy my art. I want people to buy my services for book covers or comic books or whatever they need that they think my style and my abilities are appropriate for. So yeah, let's just keep on keeping on, as they say, or as I say. Hi, I had some trouble recording this. The length that my audio was way greater than the length of the actual demo, and so I'm truncating this a bit. And I was having some trouble with the audio things as well. I apologize, but this is. I hope you enjoyed seeing Doctor Strange come to life, and if you like that kind of stuff, please come by again. Please subscribe. And till next time, keep on keeping on. Thank you.